Christmas morning 1997, I ripped open the wrapping paper and what did I see? The Nintendo 64. That's right, a year earlier this console had come out and it was mine. In my hands, I finally had the Nintendo 64. And right next to it, a copy of WCW NWO World Tour. I can still remember rushing to hook it up on my TV, grab the controllers and firing it up. The very first wrestler I picked, the Ultimo Dragon. I didn't know why I picked him, I just thought he looked really, really cool. I spent the whole day running through matches, spamming kicks, and trying to master his moves. I didn't care about anything else, sleeping, eating, any of that. It was just me and the N64. It was unlike anything I'd ever played before. And here's the thing, World Tour wasn't just another wrestling game. It was AKI's first big leap on the N64, but it laid the foundation for some of the most beloved wrestling titles of all time. Now I'm going to talk about my personal experience with this and the US release of this game on the Nintendo 64. This is how I saw it as a kid and how I still feel about this game to this day. By late 1997, WCW was on top, the NWO storyline was number one, and THQ saw an opportunity with the Nintendo 64. They partnered with AKI Corporation and got a more pro-wrestling inspired wrestling game. Instead of the button mash chaos that I've played before in other wrestling games, they had things like timing, leverage, and momentum. Now, it was a spiritual follow-up to AKI's WCW NWO vs. the World on PlayStation, but I really never had a PlayStation at the time. I was a Nintendo boy, so this game was all brand new to me. The big thing that AKI did different was the grapple first design. Every major move begins with a lockup. You might know that now, it's standard fodder for wrestling games, but tapping for a weak grapple and holding for a strong grapple, well, that was something that was iconic, and it just made for something very easy to pick up and play. Time your inputs correctly and you win the tie-up. This will let you do the moves, the body slams, the suplexes, the DDTs, the signatures, and the finishers. And the strikes were pretty much similar to this, as they had light if you tap it and heavy if you hold it. On top of that, one of the coolest features of all time, the spirit meter. It rised up with momentum and taunts, letting you hit big special moves when it got to the top. It forced players to think like wrestlers to control the pace, building to hit that special move. Little did I know that wasn't it. AK also put in a ton of stuff that North American wrestling fans weren't used to, such as weapon shots from the crowd, blood, and a roster padded with international parody names that were clearly real Japanese superstars, but little Tony had no idea who these people were. Looking at this now, I could see that it was WCW, but it clearly had a distinct Japanese game design. World Tour was a perfect storm for everything. In North America, this game came out at November of 1997. It was perfect for the holiday window where I got it, and perfect for the NWO, which was the most popular faction in all pro wrestling. Reviews landed as mixed to strongly positive, but almost everyone agrees on two things. The moves felt great and the multiplayer was amazing. Commercially, this thing took off. World Tour earned a Player's Choice status for crossing the million sales mark and ultimately sold about 1.3 million copies in the US. It even won an Academy of Interactive Arts and Science Core Fighting Game of the Year award at the very first Interactive Achievement Awards. For a licensed wrestling game to beat out any traditional fighters, that was something huge. Pro wrestling really was that popular at the time. I can't underestimate how big the grappling was. AKI's grappling and timing model became the language for the late 90s, early 2000s wrestling games. Revenge, WrestleMania 2000, No Mercy made it legendary. If you ever felt the satisfying click of two wrestlers locking up and you nailed a window, that's World Tour. Even retrospectives flat out call it revolutionary for recentering wrestling around the lockup. World Tour Revenge, WrestleMania 2000, No Mercy reads like a spirit of rapid iteration. More moves, smoother animation, bigger roster, deeper modes. But the foundation never changed because AKI got the first feel of the game right out of the bat with World Tour. World Tour landed exactly when WCW's brand was at its hottest on TV, and the game was extended into that in the living room with accessible multiplayer fun that turned any WCW NWO fan into a weekend staple for friends. A hit game that reinforces what's cool for casual wrestling fans. And in the late 97, 98, WCW, well, it felt cool. On TV, it was the most popular, and on the video games, it was fun to pick up and play. The fact that World Tour became the second best-selling N64 wrestling game speaks to how strong the brand and gameplay combo were at the moment. At the bigger picture, the NWO storyline was already pushed in the wrestling mainstream and forced WWF to pivot to the Attitude Era. World Tour didn't create the WCW surge, but it definitely amplified it. I know so many kids who didn't even like pro wrestling play this game because of the usability of the grapple mechanics in this game. The synergy between N64 and WCW is something that can't be matched today, and definitely back then, it was a cultural phenomenon. If you look back at the history of all the beloved wrestling games going up to 2K, you end up back in 1997. The first great N64 wrestling game. WCW NWO World Tour wasn't the flashiest, but it did teach everybody this. This is what a good wrestling game feels like on a video game system. Selling over 1 million copies, winning industry awards, and becoming the legendary iconic game. Not bad for AKI's first chance at the N64. For me, WCW NWO World Tour wasn't just another Christmas present. It was a gateway, a game that pulled me deeper into WCW at the exact moment the company was at its peak. Playing World Tour all day and picking Ultimo Dragon and figuring out the grappling system, it didn't just entertain me, it made me care. I wanted to know more about these wrestlers, who they were, and what they did on television. This game did that much for me as it did watching the product. I could follow their stories, see them on TV, and actually play them in a video game. That was awesome. It also lit a spark in me for my love of wrestling video games. Before this, wrestling games were clunky, they were fun, but World Tour felt like the first real wrestling game that clicked in video game form. The grapples, the spirit meter, the taunts, it all just worked. And once I had a chance to hook it up, the only thing that grew was my love for Revenge, WrestleMania 2000, and of course, No Mercy. Each one built on the foundation of World Tour and what it had created. And even today, decades later, people still talk about those AKI games as the gold standard because nothing has ever topped them. And here's the part that means most to me. Back in 97, I was a kid on Christmas morning, losing myself in World Tour. Now I get to share the love of wrestling and video games with my kids. They may have not grown up in the middle of the Monday Night War era, but when I sit down together, fire up an old AKI video game, or even just talk about wrestling, that same spark is there. There's something we can share, just like I did when I was their age. That's the magic of World Tour to me. It wasn't just the start of a great wrestling game, it was the start of a passion that lasted my whole lifetime. A passion I get to pass down to my kids. So when I look back, it's not just a sales number or the awards, it's how that game on Christmas Day 1997 turned me into a lifelong wrestling fan and a lifelong video game fan. Honestly, nothing, not even the modern 2K series, not anything else has ever quite recaptured the magic of Christmas 1997.